In this lab, we are investigating physical and chemical changes. For each experiment, make sure you write down your observations. For physical changes, think whether the size or shape is changing. If it's a chemical change, think about whether you see fizzing, bubbling, or any other reaction that won't go back to its normal substance. After you write down your observations, record whether it's a physical or chemical change. In Station A, we are going to investigate whether ice on a hot plate is a physical or a chemical change. I have a beaker full of ice here, and I'm going to put it on the hot plate. Write down your observations as to what occurs as the ice sits on the hot plate. If you look closely, you can see a difference between the ice and the bottom. What's sitting on the top of the beaker and what's sitting on the bottom. Always remember, don't touch the hot plate as it is hot and you will get burned if you try it at home. Make sure you do write down your observations. And is this a physical or a chemical change? You can pause the video to take time to record your observations and determine whether this is a physical or chemical change. In this station, remember, we are investigating physical and chemical changes. In Station B, we are going to see what kind of change occurs when you rip a sheet of paper in half. Look at your observations now, and after I tear the sheet of paper, what are your observations? Write them down, and then is this a physical or a chemical change? You can pause the video to record your observations and determine if this is a physical or chemical change. In Station C, we are investigating what happens to the candle wax as it is lit on fire. I'm going to light the candle on fire. Make sure you are careful when you're playing with flames. And we're looking at the candle wax, not the string on the top, but the candle wax. Now, as you watch the candle, observe what happens to the candle wax. You can see the liquid forming at the top. More liquid forms the longer it burns. And if you're trying to figure out what's going on, think of birthday candles. What happens when you wait too long and don't blow out the candles on your cake? Now, if I blow out the flame, what happens to the candle wax on the candle? Write down your observations. Is this a physical or a chemical change? You can pause the video to record your observations and determine whether this is a physical or chemical change. In Station D, we are going to continue investigating our physical and chemical changes. What will happen when I light this wooden splint on fire? Once again, be careful as we are dealing with a flame. As I light the match on fire and light my wooden splint on fire, record your observations. Record what happens to the wooden splint as the flame burns down. Is this a physical or a chemical change? You can pause the video to record your observations and determine whether this is a physical or chemical change. In this lab, Station E, we continue to investigate physical and chemical changes. I'm going to put 2 dropperfuls of milk into this beaker. 2, 3. And then we're going to add 3 pipettes full of vinegar. Write down your observations. What happened? Can you separate this mixture? Is it a physical or a chemical change? Write down your information. You can pause the video to record your observations and determine whether this is a physical or chemical change. In Station F, we continue to investigate physical and chemical changes. In this station, I will put a little bit of baking soda into this beaker. I'm then going to add a pipette full of vinegar. Make sure you record your observations down as they occur. What happens? Does it fizz, bubble? Write all your observations down. And then decide, is this a physical or a chemical change? You can pause the video to record your observations and determine whether this is a physical or chemical change. In Station H, we continue to investigate physical and chemical changes. In this station, we will put a little bit of blue solid copper sulfate into a beaker. We'll do 2 scoops. And then add 2 pipettefuls of ammonia. We're going to swirl it together. I'll add a little bit more ammonia. Write down your observations, what happened. Is this a physical or a chemical change? You can pause the video to record your observations and determine whether this is a physical or chemical change. In Station I, we continue to investigate physical and chemical changes. In this station, we're going to take a piece of chalk and place it in the beaker. I'm then going to put a couple pipettes full of vinegar in with the chalk. Write down your observations when a reaction occurs. Do you see any bubbling or fizzing? Is anything taking place? If you look closely, you can see bubbles forming. So that would be one observation. Think, can it go back to its original form? Is this a physical or a chemical change? You can pause the video to record your observations and determine whether this is a physical or chemical change.